It was an ugly game, but a bit of a telling game. I guess the question becomes, how many close or semi-disappointing performances can we see from the Ravens before we start to question the legitimacy of their record, right? And, I've been tracking this thing, right? I am not necessarily results-oriented person, right? It's more process. And if the Lions are the worst team in the league, they survive the Lions. And you go, okay, everybody's entitled to a stinker. I agree with that. The problem is that they've had several stinkers, and last night was the stinkiest of stinkers. And I also think that, look, what we do with Lamar Jackson is we do the opposite of what some will say. There will always be people who will question any sort of questioning of Lamar Jackson. Well, it's because one scout, actually no, the scout, wanted him to line up and run routes with wide receivers. Well, it's because he was this or he was that. Like, quarterback criticism is universal. It just is, right? I mean, look, Baker Mayfield's a former number one overall pick, and how much criticism has he got? He even got criticism from Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad, right? So Tua Tagovailoa has gotten plenty of criticism from yours truly. I just don't see any wow plays. And so when early in the year or before the year began, people were saying, hey, listen, there's a chance the league has caught up to Lamar Jackson. It was brushed off and brushed aside. And it's because you look at the totality of the stats and you're like, man, he's the MVP. They have a winning record. They're a great team. He's their quarterback. He makes the plays. He has a great team. My pushback is really simple. How we're judging Lamar Jackson's stats and how we're misevaluating them is very similar to what we've done with Russell Westbrook. That's it. I don't know if I do feel like there's a chance he's a little better at what he does in terms of the top end in the playoffs than Russell Westbrook, but you can use this with James Harden as well. Look, the stats that guys are putting up in the NBA, more previous to this year than this year, but the stats, well, you couldn't really judge them against the previous 25-year seasons because there's more possessions. So more possessions mean more shots, mean more assists, mean more rebounds, more possessions. In terms of the points, when you shoot a much higher volume of three-pointers than any previous generation, and when it's worth, when it's worth 3 more than 2, 10 points, double digits or your point total is a different sort of math than we've seen. And then you factor in that there aren't the power forwards, that there aren't the slug it out games, that everybody's spread out and playing 5 out around. The point is that we judge the stats based upon traditional stats. And based upon traditional stats, Lamar Jackson has been outstanding. Right? But if you really, really dive in and you really do your due diligence and you really try and check out the Baltimore Ravens, I think you'd agree that he's had halves that aren't great. He's had a couple games that aren't great, and last night was one of them. And remember, as much as they dominated the Chargers and they beat the Chiefs 36-35 in a come-from-behind win, okay, let me read you the other wins on their schedule. The Lions on a record-setting field goal. The Broncos. I believe Teddy Bridgewater didn't play. The Colts. The Chargers, the Vikings. What do those teams have in common? None of them are any good, right? I mean, they got the Bears next, who they have new life, but the truth is that the Bears aren't an elite team. Then Browns, then at Steelers, then at Browns, then Packers, then at Bengals, then Rams, then Steelers. It gets real for the Ravens. Now, they do get the benefit of the fact they get a couple extra days off. But this is not me telling you Lamar Jackson stinks. Please don't do that. Oh, you're a Lamar Jackson hater. No, but he does have 8 interceptions. He is on pace to throw for over 4,000 yards. But again, everything is put. They do their Russell Wilson as well, right? And I think I could be wrong, but I believe that a good portion of his struggles at times, because it's not the defense's fault that he has interceptions or that he fumbles. It's Lamar Jackson's fault. And what people have figured out is blitz him, keep him in the pocket, make him throw the short and underneath routes. And if you do that, you got a great chance to beat him because he's not going to pick you apart deep. He throws a great deep ball, but deep within a zone, outside the numbers. Yeah, that's not, I mean, how many times last night did we see him throw one of those little sidearm fling balls, at the line of scrimmage behind the sticks because it was pretty obvious what the Dolphins were doing. Blitzing, keeping their guys in front, no home run balls, being physical, and then rallying to the ball and tackling. Like, again, I can't because I'm not capable, like so many much brighter true football people will tell you, but it was pretty obvious that they had incredible opportunities. They couldn't move the football. And again, this is not just Lamar. It's also the defense isn't as good, as was pointed out time and again in terms of against the pass. And they're on like their 6th or 7th running back, and they've had issues. Ronnie Stanley out for the season, only really played one game, but that's where their money's tied up. So I look at last night's game, and as much as I'm the dope who picked the Ravens to cover but the under, and I was wrong on half of that, but I was really wrong on the Ravens, I do nod my head because if you were listening yesterday, we talked about some of the uneven performances. And uneven is a nice way of saying they didn't play really well. And if you can limit Lamar, if you can limit their home run plays, you can keep them in the pocket. This is the flaw. This is who he is. It's okay. He's still a very, very productive, explosive player. And not everybody can blitz the way that Miami can blitz. Not everybody has the scheme that Miami has. This was Brian Flores on why Tua, because the other weird part of the game was, right, that Tua, and they pointed this out at halftime as well, right, where they're like, wait, Tua can play, but he's not starting. Why is Jacoby Brissett starting? Then Jacoby Brissett tweaked his knee. Then Tua came in, and at first he looked very, very inaccurate. Here's Flores explaining why Tua didn't start, but finished.
I said this last night. We try to protect players from themselves, trying to avoid that situation with him banging his finger last night. We got to take it day to day with both players and see how that goes. But this isn't like I think people are trying to turn this into a controversial situation where, we don't want this a certain player to play. I try to look out for the best interests of the players individually, the team. All those things play a role in the decisions we make. And that was the case last night.
This is Brian Flores today asked, this is asked after the game if Tua was his guy.
Jacoby was banged up yesterday. Same with Tua. Thought Tua did a good job of kind of fighting through, the discomfort. He's obviously, we all saw him bang. He banged his finger too in the game, which that's kind of what we were trying to avoid. So I think, the situation with Tua, obviously, I've said many times, he's our quarterback.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Kind of quickly here, this is Lamar Jackson on what went wrong.
I was hot. We weren't scoring no points. We started putting our defense out there. They played a great game. Dolphins had their little play. They had their great players on offense, but I feel like our defense played lights out, man. We just wasn't getting it done on offense. That's why I was mad. If you was on offense, you would be mad too. It's ridiculous. I don't understand it either. We just got to do a better job at that. Hitting the ground running like we supposed to. And then start by staying calm and just doing us. Don't put nothing extra on our mind.
Huh. So maybe a little insight into what was going wrong as they started forcing it. But there was, it's a little bit like what Lamar said, like they can get frustrated. They had plenty of opportunities to go down, drive down and score and win the game. And they just couldn't. They couldn't get anything going. And so you start to look at the Ravens and you say look, I don't love Big Ben. I like Lamar a lot better than Big Ben at this point in Big Ben's career. But I do like the fact that the Steelers can kind of find a way. While the Bengals aren't, quote unquote, there yet, the Bengals are still very, very capable of winning games. And then the Browns, as they get healthy and at least seem to be a cohesive unit, especially now that OBJ's gone, I think most people believe, especially the defensive side of the ball, they had the most talented team in the division. The Ravens aren't complete frauds, right? This is not like they've played the Jets and the Jaguars on a loop. But their schedule hasn't been strong. They've played down to the level of competition. And there is a sense that while the league still is going to struggle to tackle Lamar in space and can't let him throw that beautiful deep ball that he throws, there is a sense of, if you got the personnel to do it, if it's close to how you like to play, you blitz him, you keep him in the pocket, you keep everybody in front, and you make him make the harder, closer, short, mid-range sort of throws. It's not figuring him out, but it's figuring out how to slow him down, and it seems to be frustrating the Ravens. This is not the first bad performance against a bad team. Don't believe me? I give you the Lions, and heck, go and look, and this is a team that even struggled not just with the Lions, but with Minnesota, who's not great. They were bad against Indy for a half, and the Kansas City Chiefs as well, who they beat. But the Chiefs are not. I don't think anybody believes the Chiefs are anywhere near what they have been.